The other game, of course, on Thursday involving Scottish teams is Rangers Roma, which maybe the headline game of the week. Pete has been in touch. He says the Bala not travelling is actually a blessing for Roma. It will force Gasperini to abandon the false nine system. Dovbyk up top with Pellegrini playing in the 10 makes Roma a more threatening side. They have been really good in Serie A this season, Roma. This is, again, going to be a very big test for Danny Rohl.
I think Pete's got the wrong channel here. False nines, number 10s. Look, this is dinosaurs or us. No, listen, do you know what? I'm going to now join him. See Gianpiero Gasperini. This guy is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. I think he had 9 years at Atalanta, having spent a journeyman career. What he did with Atalanta was incredible. He's a guy who's, he doesn't like Martin O'Neill. He's not being defined by his age. I think he's 67. So in just a couple of games, young Danny Rohl at the age of 36 will have come up against a 73-year-old and a 67-year-old, and both of them know their way about a dugout in a technical area. Gasperini's Atlanta side was terrific. I think he achieved so much that he earned himself the move to Roma. I thought people just kind of made the assumption he was just going to stay there until it was, all over for him. But he's taken Roma on, which is a big job in Italy, obviously. I think a few games into the start of the Serie A season, he's 1 point off the top of the table.
Yep.
I know they're sitting in fourth place. I know they lost at the weekend to AC Milan, I think, but they're only 1 point behind Napoli. This guy just continues to impress. It is the sort of ultimate Indian summer that he's been enjoying over the last decade or so. But that all said, they're struggling a little bit in the Europa League. And some of the bigger Italian sides, I wonder, because of the new format, you wonder how much they've got, if they take the eye off the ball at the early stages in these competitions and think, we'll make the points up later. But as things stand, where are they? I think they're sitting Roma in 23rd position with 1 win and 2 defeats from the first 3 games. They beat Nice, but they lost to Lille and Victoria Pilsen.
Below Celtic as well.
Yeah, well, look, it's not a great start, is it? And if Rangers could find a way of turning the tables on them and winning at Ibrox, then they'd be in the same position with 3 points after 3 games, and pulling up, next to them in the table. Rangers obviously in a terrible start, just like Aberdeen, sitting in 36th. But you do look at it as an opportunity for Rangers' home crowd. I think this is one of the more difficult ties, obviously, of the section for them. But it's also an opportunity. You look at the performance level that they put on against Celtic, and it wasn't sensational or anywhere near it. It was a lot more aggressive, and Danny Rohl's had a bit of praise. And I think, in a strange way, even though he's just lost a game against Martin O'Neill and Celtic at Hampden, got knocked out a cup semi-final, it was a really strange set of circumstances that I think he came out of it with his reputation certainly intact and possibly enhanced, because it was such the sort of anti-Russell Martin Rangers performance. It was aggressive, it was bold, it was all the things that the Rangers fans are hoping to see from the manager that they've got now. So what I think I'm saying is there's a bit of goodwill, even despite that result, going into this game on Thursday night at Rangers. And if Danny Rohl can get a big win, and that would constitute a big win under the lights, Rangers fans have been turning up and going through the motions for the Europa League so far this season. This could potentially flick a switch if Rangers attack this game front-footed, get a result, put on a performance. They might just ignite something that's been missing from Ibrox since the start of the season in terms of the passion and the atmosphere, and it will help. It would help certainly reconnect with the fans. But it's like anything, fine margins, isn't it? Because if Rangers turn up and get a pasting, then Danny Rohl's coming off the back of 2 pretty damaging defeats with it all to prove.
Yeah.
And I
And off
think
the
they've got
back of
Dundee.
that brand game as well.
Yeah, I don't think you could attribute any of the blame for that to Danny Rohl. He was literally just in the door. I'm not even sure that he picked the starting 11 for that game, as we've discussed previously, and my suspicions over who might have been behind some of that or certainly influenced it. And by the way, that's still a topic of conversation, given some of the players that seem to have become first picks over the last week or so, 2 weeks since Danny Rohl came in. However, if you look at the bigger picture, I think the Rangers fans are prepared to give him a little bit of time because they like the change. They like the change in attitude. They like the kind of the uplift in aggression and purpose and playing the ball forward and tactically they've probably looked at how he manipulated things at half time against Celtic, and actually, even though they were down to 10 men, he made Rangers better by the positional changes and strategic changes that he introduced, going to what was it, a 4-3-2 effectively, really,
Yeah.
and being bold. So I think he's got a bit of momentum there. Certainly, I don't think the goodwill has evaporated just because of what went on at Hampden. And I think it could go either way. If he goes to Ibrox, puts on a performance, gets them on the board in terms of some Europa League points, claims a big scalp, I think the thing could really start to build from there. If, however, as I said, he goes and Rangers get turned over in front of their home fans, it starts to look like things could start becoming pretty difficult pretty quickly for him as well. So these are a massive couple of days for Rangers and for Danny Rowe.
In the comments, Rab says, how can you lose a semi-final to a team with a caretaker manager and have any credit? Realistic? No. And let me have a look at this.
I'm guessing Big Rab's not. I'm talking about with the Rangers fans. I'm guessing Big Rab doesn't count himself among the Rangers fans.
I would think not, probably. I would think not.
Right, okay.
And the other comments, let me have a look. Gianni very helpfully says, Daniel, lump on Roma to pay for your wee bird's Christmas, which is very helpful. He also says,
That's so sexist. You can't
says,
use language like that, Gianni.
I know, it's 2025. Come on, Gianni. He says Keith's been on the Barolo already if he thinks Rangers can get something. But there is actually a lot of, or some confident Rangers fans in the comments as well. Kenneth says Roma have been poor in Europa this season. I think Rangers will get something out of the game. I mean,
they've also got, as one of the guys said there, they've got Gasparini's got a problem in terms of his front line. Paulo Dybala is obviously not making the flight. I think they signed Evan Ferguson, didn't they? Your favourite, Dan. But he's got an ankle injury, and I don't think he'll be part of the travelling party. So I think he's going to have to give it a bit of a shake-up. I think Dybala actually injured himself missing a penalty at the weekend,
Aye,
which which just shows you that's when your luck's out, it's out, and it's left him with a bit of an issue in terms of who's going to come in. Leon Bailey, I think, used to be at Villa. I don't know how regularly he's been getting a game, but he could come into the thinking up front. But yeah, they've got issues, and as smart as I think Gianpiero Gasparini is, he's not without his work to do ahead of this game. So, look, would I consider Rangers favourites? No, I wouldn't. But we've seen in the past they are capable sometimes of raising their levels on Thursday nights in this competition, and I think this game represents a fresh start for them. Despite I obviously acknowledge that Danny Rohl was in charge for the Brand-Bergen game, but I don't really think that, as I said, that you could point the finger of blame at him for what happened in that game. I look at what's happened subsequently to get a better gauge for the work that he's done in a short space of time. And while it's not been, utterly sensational, it's been reasonably impressive. And if he can get it all together and get his selection right, his tactics right, and pull off a bit of a scalp, I think that'd be a signature win for him. If he could do that, a real signature result, and it could act as a trigger point for Rangers season. As I said to you, the flip side of that is if it goes wrong for Rangers, then he very quickly starts to get into a difficult position in terms of his credibility and his popularity with the Rangers supporters, who, you know, they are not fond of losing games of football. They will bite their tongue a little bit on the back of what happened at Hampden, but you wouldn't want to follow that up with another sore one, because you know, and let's be fair to the Rangers fans, it's no wonder their patience is running out.
Yeah.
Given what they've had to go through over a sustained period of time now, and they're desperately looking for signs that they've got a guy in charge here that can get them back to winning ways, and not just winning games against Kilmarnock or Hibs, with all due respect, but big games that really matter. And this is his next opportunity to do that.
One final trip to the comments, Keith, before we wrap up tonight's show. Pete says, don't worry, Keith, Dovbyk will play. Pellegrini has a point to prove and will stroll about Ibrox like he owns the place. James says, Roma, game is too soon for Rohl. I'd settle for a performance like the second half of the semi. Sean says, I can see Roma rolling over Rangers. If Celtic had taken the chances, Rangers would have been on the wrong end of a bad one Sunday. They were lucky to get the win against Hibs.